Hi, Leila from Murlo. Welcome to Designing a Round Yoke Sweater, Lesson 4B. In today's lesson, we're going to be discussing how to put design elements into the yoke now that you've completed all of the calculation. Let's get started. Now that we know how many stitches we will have and how many rows we will have, it's easy for us to determine what kind of design elements are we going to put in each of the areas. Make note that where you are doing your short rows at the beginning of the base of the yoke and at the top of the yoke, you don't want to put design elements in there. Let's get started with how we determine what kind of design elements to use. When it comes to choosing a design that you're going to use on the yoke of your sweater, having some reference material might be worthwhile. I would recommend the 200 Ferrule Motifs by Mary Jane Mucklestone. And there's also the Alice Starmore's Book of Ferrule Knitting. These books make it so easy to choose a design element because within them, they're going to give you how many rows and how many stitches are in each motif. That's going to help you pick a design. Depending on the type of design that you want, you may find one that you like as far as how many stitches it has, how many rows it has. We're going to go through how perhaps there can be some adjusting going on to accommodate the design element of your choice. That's also why in the previous section when we did our calculations, we did it all in pencil so that we could make some minor adjustments. Let's take a look at an example. Say I'm in this section here, which is going to be the largest section of the yoke. I know that I have 352 stitches, and I also know how many rows I have here. Now, I can use any factor of 352 as the number of stitches to have within the design. Say I have a design element that I've run across that's got 10 stitches in it. I have 352 stitches. I'm therefore going to have to do a decrease row before I get into knitting that design. By decreasing 2 stitches, that gives me 350 stitches, which then would mean 35 repeats of a 10-stitch design. That's not a problem. Let's say it's 10 rows in height. Well, I could repeat it twice, which would use 20 of the rows I have. This would mean that I would have some rows left over. So if I knit some plain rows in between those 10 rows, that would help use up some of the additional stitches. Then we get into my next section here. After doing my first decrease round where I've eliminated 70 stitches, that's going to leave me with 282 stitches. I could do a 6-stitch by 8 row design, and then I would move on to my next decrease round. When I did the calculation, I was going to be decreasing 56 stitches here, which would give me 226 stitches at this point. Well, that presents a bit of a problem because the only factors that go into 226 is 2 and 113. I have the option here where I could change it. Knock this down to 224, which then allows me to have a 4, 7, 8, 14, 16, 28 stitch repeat in here. So many more options going that way. So I'm going to go back to my calculation sheet, and where I have that I've removed 56 stitches, I'm going to eliminate 58 to get me down to 224. That also means that I have to go back in here and adjust. My next set of numbers will be 2 less, 2 less, 2 less. Let's talk a little bit about design elements. When we look at doing some color work, you're going to want to use some contrasting colors. That's going to make the design pop out a little bit better. Also bear in mind that you should only be knitting 2 colors per row. Now this looks like it's very, very colorful, but it only has 2 colors per row. But I can switch out those colors as we go. There's also bands of design breaking up some of the design elements used, and they're repeated throughout the sweater. So there's 1, 2, 3 different design elements in here. They're just repeated over and over. You can still get a great pop of a design without having to go with numerous colors. 2 colors will work just fine for you. The yoke's been a lot of work. In the calculations, we did how to figure out the short rows. We figured out how many stitches do we need to increase at 5 different spots, where those 5 different spots were located. And then we covered kind of some food for thought as far as how to do some design elements. And there were a couple of books that I had recommended. Both of these books would be very good books if you feel that color work is going to be your thing and you want to have lots of samples. Pinterest is a huge source showing different colored charts that you could do in the designing process. To get you started on Murlo.ca through Pinterest, I have started a board with just some samples in there. You're good to go. You've got all the calculations you need, and you can pick up a design that is of your choice. Have fun with it, and just think at the end of it, it's unique to you. Nobody else will have that sweater. Happy knitting. Thank you for watching. This is Leila from Murlo.